There is a country in the Eastern Hemisphere known as China. You might have heard of it. For a long time, us Americans believed that China made inferior products. Now, the allegations there may or may not have been true at one point, but one thing is absolutely for certain. They are competitive, if not better, than the Western world at making running shoes. And today, we are here to review the latest, perhaps the greatest, carbon-plated racing shoe from a new brand called Douyin. This is the Douyin PB Pro. Get a quick weigh-in on the Douyin PB Pro. This is the shoe that I was and am most excited about out of all of the Chinese shoes that I purchased. 148 grams is also the lightest. This is in a 9.5, so up to 154. That's a little bit of a difference. I was the most excited about this out of all of them because it is supposedly the fastest. It has an aliphatic TPU. Midsole, it has this extremely feather-light, like chainmail style. I believe it's made also out of TPU upper, but you could see just how completely see-through that is. There's nothing to it whatsoever. I know I've been over this a few times how non-accurate these caliper readings are, but there are no, that I could see, there's no information about the stack, the drop. So I'm guessing this is a 40 down to 34 or 32, but we'll see. I don't know if we'll actually see from this. It's really hard to get a good heel measurement on these, but looking at this is around 40, and if we go a little bit further up, like right around here, it's right around 41. Makes sense. I mean, also if the sidewall comes up just a little bit, it's going to be extremely challenging to get a good feedback on that, but right there, be like 37. So that's an estimate. Take it with a grain of salt. Then up in the forefoot, it's compressing it a little bit. 35. So it's for sure a lower drop. Normally I get much higher readings than what the stated value is for the shoe. But yeah, that's a quick run through of some of the stats. We'll see what it feels like on foot drop wise, but it's going to be a lower drop. If we have categories, it's probably under a 5mm drop, around there. All right, let's get it on foot. I have the Douyin PB Pro on foot right now. I skipped the lacing up because I am in a hurry. It's a busy day. It's Tuesday. It's a double day. Shooting for 20 as per usual. A couple observations about the fit of the Douyin PB Pro. First is that it is long, for sure. That wasn't an issue in the Dynafishtenian one, so hopefully it's not an issue in this today. Second is the split heel collar, similar to the Adios Pro 4 design. I don't know if it's going to be an issue with my Achilles. That tends to be hit or miss with the sensation on my heels for this type of heel collar, but overall it's been mostly fine across all of the shoes that I've tried with that design, and so far I don't see any reason this won't be, but it's bugged me in the past. Next is the laces. Even though they're the serrated laces, they're like the wrong type of serrated laces. They're like the ones you would get on Amazon. Don't love that. They're thicker than they need to be and heavier than they need to be, which just makes it a little cumbersome to get like them adjusted. It's not really about the lockdown they provide or the security they provide. They're still doing a great job there, but they could be lighter, right, and also save a couple grams on the shoe potentially, which is not needed in a 150 gram hyper shoe. But if you're going to be putting in really light uppers, really light tongues, this uncompressed supercritical ATPU, maybe you could save an additional couple grams on the laces and improve the laces by doing so. Otherwise, they're completely see-through. It looks really cool. I need to get after it, so let's go. Full length plate in this is really noticeable, and that's the main difference between this and the Dynafish Denian one, is that in that shoe I didn't have heel slipping issues, and this one I do, and it's all down to the plate and the length of the plate. Initially I thought that this plate was 3/4 length, but as it turns out it is not. I'm gonna set up for some faster miles though. So far, I'm not exactly falling in love. Really, like, this right forefoot is hurting from the plate. And it only seems to be occurring once I get down to, like, sub 7 minute per mile pace, which tells me I just can't take that intensive forefoot impact forces, which is not a great sign, because I'd want to be somewhere around that pace for any number of situations that I would use this for. Maybe not for the marathon right away, but eventually. It also, this might be a good thing for some people, a really good thing for some, but seems to reward a slower cadence. My stride was adapting itself naturally to a lower cadence, which might be indicative of why it doesn't necessarily agree with me right away. I do actually find it a lot more comfortable for running these 8 minute down to 7 minute paces than it was down at below 7, because now I'm not really experiencing the plate feel at all, and they feel extremely bouncy and a bit robotic even. Maybe it's something I just need to get used to. I mean, I just hopped off the track in which I was starting to form a negative opinion, and now back on the pavement at slower paces, at 8 flat, I feel great again. Interesting. I'd have to do a head-to-head with this and the Mizuno Wave Rebellion Lowboy, but this feels at least on par with the bounciness of that. Maybe not at least, it feels on par with the bounciness of that. Maybe the Lowboy's a little bouncier, but really that would have to be a head-to-head to tell. This feels a bit, maybe where I'm getting this is this feels a bit more stable than the low boy, and maybe that like wildness is translating to the feeling of bounciness. But yeah, this is really bouncy, is the point. I got quite a few speed miles in. I don't know exactly what times were, but paces were great. I stand by that this shoe does a little bit better at marathon to half marathon pace, but I fixed the issues that I was having and it doesn't hurt anymore, which is huge. So that just leaves me with understanding the purpose of this, understanding what I'd use it for. I think this would make a crazy long run shoe, especially like later long runs in a block where you have a lot of marathon pace incorporated in them. These might be among the best for that I own. I'm tired. Wanted to give you some concluding thoughts before I return to the work day and have my thoughts evaporate entirely. This grew on me monumentally throughout the run, and especially returning back down to this like 8-minute pace has like a cool down. I thought it was going like 9-minute pace as a cool down just because of how intense that workout was. It's like when you are in a car and you are in a 60 but you have to drop down to a 35 and you realize like even going down to 45 you feel like you're going 20. I hope that makes sense.
What's up, everybody? I am back in the studio with the Douyin PB Pro. What is this shoe? Well, I touched on it earlier out on the run, but if you skipped right to the end here and you want to learn about this shoe, this is a carbon-plated racing shoe. It has a completely see-through upper, which you might even be able to see me sneaking through there. But if you can't see my face, you absolutely will be able to see my fingers in great detail. It has a very limited tongue of the style that the Metaspeed series, both the current Tokyo iteration and the Paris iteration have, and plenty of other running shoes have this. In fact, the other racing shoe that I purchased from China, the country, the Dynafish Danny 1, had a similar tongue to this. It has serrated laces, though this version of serrated laces isn't exactly my favorite. It is a little bit thicker of a lace and firmer fabric, I guess you would call it. It has a split heel collar. This mesh is gorgeously see-through. It might be, in fact, too see-through for some, but I think it's really pretty, especially with the purple accents. And it has this big old slab of foam. Now, it took a little bit of digging in the spec sheet to find what type of foam this is. The place that I purchased this from is called Taobao. It's a Chinese website that sells products and to Chinese market, not necessarily to the Western market. And it's all in Chinese. I auto-translated a bunch of it. This was at the bottom of the spec sheet. So the midsole is aliphatic TPU. That's what they're claiming on the spec sheet. And it has this nice rubber outsole. I couldn't figure out exactly what the rubber compound was, but it is grippy, though sparsely applied. So that's the overview of the shoe. I couldn't find anything specific on stack height or drop. From measuring it this morning, and we all know how unreliable calipers could be, and if you're new here, welcome. Calipers for measuring the midsole of a shoe, super unreliable. I tried anyways. I did my best to figure it out. It seems like this could be pretty close to a full stack of foam in both the rear and in the forefoot. So why do I say that? It's very unlikely that this has much of a drop to it.
And the caliper readings that I was getting up at the front were very similar to what I was getting at the heel. Can't give you an exact, measurement, but I wouldn't be surprised if this was 40 in the heel and maybe like 36 or so in the forefoot. That would be realistic. When stepping into it for the first time and just standing still on flat ground, it did the negative drop feeling where you're sort of like your heel feels like it's a little backwards on the ground, which I don't personally mind. I like a lower drop racing shoe or a lower drop shoe in general. I think it's a little bit more natural for my foot strike. So let's get into how the first run went. I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on this today because it was only a 10-mile run. There's going to be more learning to be done on this shoe, especially since, and we'll come to this in a minute, what I think its proper use case is the marathon, right? So today's run probably wasn't long enough to put it all the way through its paces like it should be tested. I intend to take it for a long run at the first opportunity that I get. How did I like the ride? That's the question probably on everybody's mind. First thing that I noticed, it has that big like hollow door feel that I've described in other racing shoes like the Metaspeed Edge Paris. It feels like you're jumping on a hollow door that's very like firm, but without anything inside of it, so that it bends and then flings you back up. So it's you're bouncing, but it's echoey and explosive. Very bouncy shoe, nearly as bouncy as the Mizuno Wave Rebellion Pro Lowboy that I tested about a week ago. Maybe slightly less bouncy than that, but I would have to put them head to head to make a really genuinely honest comparison, because today this felt very bouncy. It did feel like it was geared more towards stride runners. I know that ASICS introduced this whole like kerfuffle in the running community by differentiating their shoes by cadence and stride. The whole discussion surrounding stride versus cadence running came into the forefront of the running discussion circles as a result of that differentiation between their two super shoes. And today, I think I really finally understood what that means for me as a runner. This felt like it wanted me to run at a lower cadence. I was kind of stuck at about 180, which might seem pretty high, but I was going relatively fast when I was hitting that cadence. And normally at a similar pace, like anything around 7-minute miles, I would be 190 plus in several other shoes. Not every shoe, right? There are daily trainers I would probably be closer to 180 as well, but it felt like this shoe didn't want to turn over with my natural like mechanics, my body mechanics, and that it wanted to have a longer loping, more powerful stride behind it. And that's just a initial observation. It could change over time. Maybe it's something to do with a more gradual rocker. I'm not sure. The other thing that I noticed with it today that did go away by the end of the run was some pretty intense plate feel on my right forefoot. Now, this is something that I struggle with in a lot of super shoes, especially ones that aren't super scooped. The plate placement in this is really low, so I didn't think it would be an issue. And I'm not really sure why it was, because it wasn't on my left foot. But once I, dialed in the fit a little bit more on the final miles of my run today, it did actually go away. And I'm grateful for that. But this is why I'm saying also that I need more testing to validate that that's not going to recur before I consider taking this for a race. I do think that this locks into paces extremely well. I was getting down to 7-minute pace for a while, and I was just parked there for a little bit until I made the decision to sort of go for some really quick miles. and ended up PRing in the 5K again. This is going to continue to happen because I don't really run a lot of fast sequential miles in my daily training, and like I'm focused on, or have been focused on, building mileage over time for the last several months. And so my training hasn't really lended itself necessarily to the quicker distances like the 5K. But yeah, I was really happy with the run today, with a couple small caveats to it. That's all I have for you right now on this shoe. I do intend to make a recap video for all of you on my Chinese running shoe experience, delving into this market, how I would consider going about getting more Chinese running shoes in the future. The tariff situation makes it a lot more expensive than it would have been about a year ago. It is a 65% charge on the import of the shipping cost. So it's nearly double what I would be paying if this were simply like a few months ago. I'm excited though, all the same. I think that this retails from Taobao at $100 US. Now, because of the shipping, that was not what I paid for this shoe. And it's really hard to say what I paid for this shoe because I purchased 3 at the same time. And for those 3 shoes, I paid a total of around $400. Now, I might get a rebate because they repackaged all of the shoes back into one box, saving a little bit of weight and space in the plane. And that's how the shipping company that manages the delivery to America does pricing. So we'll see if it discounts, and I'll inform you all if it does. But $400 for 3 shoes comes out to $133 a shoe. This is a hypershoe. It's uncompressed aliphatic TPU. I don't know if you could see this, like rough and readiness around the edges. That is a solid block of carved like TPU. It is not a molded shoe. It's cut out of a block and then glued together at the seams here. So it is the creme de la creme, top of the line type of foam technologies, right? The newest, buzz of the town, aliphatic TPU, and the same technology in the Pro Evo with uncompressed foam. And, it's 150 grams. So the shoe is the real deal. It's as real, if not realer, than any shoe on the Western market. And $133 for that, a pretty good deal. And the fact that I got the Dynafish Denian 1, which on the first run in that alone, I liked even more than this. But again, this could change over time, right? They're both very impressive shoes. That was also, like, if you average it out, that was also only $133. That retails at $50 US. So if we're going to talk about price, which I think that I'll probably delve more into the literal breakdown in another video, there's not even like any comparison between Western brands and Chinese brands, what they're doing. Like, they're able to deliver an equivalent or better product than anything on the US market for a fraction of the price. Pretty crazy. It's blowing me away that this is an option. It is not the easiest to get these shoes. You do have to go through a rigmarole with translating Chinese, so be mindful of that. But if you are interested in making a large order to Taobao with several shoes that you've been meaning to try, then, you're going to find the most value that you're going to get anywhere, period. So with that, I'll wrap it up. Thank you for your attention and stay in motion.